Welcome back to Overtime Heroics. I'm Mason Shatwell, and joining me today is Aaron Aby, who has just come off a great win on the Cage Warriors doubleheader. Aaron, how are you, mate?
I'm good, thank you.
I'm gonna get it off. World champions, you beat them as well. But before we get into that, I wanted to ask a bit about the reason why you took some time off a couple of years ago, if that's good with you.
Yeah, that's fine, mate. Ask me anything you want.
Are you okay to tell us what actually happened?
So I was diagnosed with cancer. I recently fought Danny Missing on ACB, and I had some problems in the camp up to the fight. So I just was going through it, and obviously wanted to get the fight out of the way, and started having tests after the fight, and got diagnosed with stage 3 cancer.
How did you? Not obviously we know you've overcome it, but how did you manage that information? How did you react?
At first, it was one of those things that when they were telling me, I didn't quite believe it. Like, no, surely not. At the start, and then obviously once you've accepted it, you've got to come up with a plan to deal with it. So trying to stay positive despite what's happening, and coming up a way that you're going to get out the other end of it, and just knowing that like everything I'd been through previously in my life and up to that point was going to get me out of the other side of this battle that I would have been going through at the time.
How was you feeling about your MMA career after that? Did you think you'd return to the cage?
I always believed I would, even though other people didn't, and I was getting told I wouldn't. For me, I didn't want to just survive cancer and come out the other end. I wanted to get back to what I was doing before the cancer. Like everything I've been through in my life, I didn't want to just that to go away from me. And I didn't want, like, for me, just getting out the other side, surviving cancer wasn't good enough. I had to get back. I had to get back competing and doing everything I was before.
After you got the all clear and you found out you'd beat cancer, how did you feel about getting back in the cage? Was you confident of picking up where you left off?
For me, getting the all clear clinically from cancer wasn't enough. For me, getting the all clear was getting back competing again. So as soon as the hospital had passed me off, I was straight back into physio, working with my physio, working on my rehab, and then putting a plan together to get back training and get back competing again. In hindsight, I probably competed too soon, but it was something that the opportunity come up and something that I wanted to do, and I was going to work hard to do that. But like I said, I always believed I would get back to competing, and I always wanted to get back competing as the athlete I was before the cancer, which is, took me. That's why I say the fight was a bit too soon. I weighed in, I think, at like 55 kilograms for a fight at 57. I was still on the recovery side, but it was something that I had to do in my own mind to end that cancer journey so I could move on.
From when you first found out to you being able to train again, how long was that whole process?
I was training through the treatment, to be honest. Not often, but if I could squeeze a session in, when sometimes it would just have to be in the gym. Obviously, if I undergone, because I underwent 3 operations, so I couldn't always do anything rolling competitively. But sometimes I could hit pads, or if I could get a gym session in, I would get a gym session. But after all the operations and the final operation, I went under 2 weeks of just physio from home. And then I did a 6-week block, just strength and conditioning back in the gym. And then I started back rolling techniques light before I moved on to pad work. Wrestling was obviously last, and sparring. So I put a good plan in place with my physio and my team to get back competing. I'd had a similar operation before when I was 21. I had the foot of my colon removed. So I knew the process I would have to go through to get back there. so I had a better understanding this time rather than the first time I had to have an operation on my stomach.
Well, after your first fight, after the whole process, the treatment, everything, getting in the all clear, how did it feel to be finally back in the cage?
People like ask me this question. I've been asked it a few times this week of like, what's my most proudest moment in mixed martial arts? Like, is it the win on Cage Warriors? Was it fighting on ACB and the MAN and stuff? And my comeback fight was my proudest moment. Even though it was a draw, probably wasn't my best performance. But for me, my journey is more important. Like the win and loss ratio of that fight and making that walk back that night was the most proudest probably moment in my life. Like I looked over the balcony and I could see people who've been on that cancer journey with me, people who've been in the hospital with me, people like helped me walk when I couldn't walk, or people who cleaned up my sick, people who've been in the hospital room with me, come to see me after my operation. I could see them all from the balcony before the fight when I got announced to the ring. And the song that I walked out to that night was a song I was playing throughout my cancer journey to, like, if I needed a kick up the arse or was feeling a bit down, just to give me a bit of motivation. And I think like when you're going through a tough time and you're fighting for your life almost, you need those positive, hopeful moments that you can hold on to. And like I always visualized coming back and fighting again. So having it come to fruition and seeing everyone there who supported me, because it wasn't just me who got me back competing. It was everyone around me, my family, friends, the hospital team, and to have them all there with me on that walkout. Like fighting, they say, is an individual sport, but you need a team around you. And that for me, that was more than just an MMA fight. That was more than just a comeback fight. It was the end of my cancer journey and something that I'd worked hard to get back, and something that kept me going.
Before all clear and all that, was there ever a point where you thought you wasn't going to step in the cage again, or did you always believe you would?
You're always going to have some negative thoughts. You're always going to have some negative thoughts. And that's a thing, like, you know, even when you go into fights, you'll have some negative thoughts. It's how you deal with them. So I'd always like be able to talk my way around, answer them with solid questions. And that's a thing, like I used to say, like when I was going through the cancer journey, almost like going through a spiritual journey as well. And I'd sometimes like be looking for other people for answers. And what I concluded was that I'm the only one who has my answers. It's always been me that's got me through stuff, and the people around me. But inevitably, if I believed I could do something, I would be able to do it. And if a doubt would come into my mind, I'd always answer it with questions that I'd answered it with before, positive reinforcement of things I'd come out the other end of before, and everything I've been through in my life. Like I've had tough times before the cancer, and I've always come out of them. So I always believed eventually that I would get around them. But you know, I'm not going to lie and say I never had a negative thought, because you do. Because you know, like I said in post-fight interview, I said life's a bitch. It ain't always just nice and plain sailing, and you ain't always happy. But it's a gift if you live it to its potential. But there are always going to be tough times, no matter what journey you're going through. And you're going to have bad thoughts, whatever journey you're going through. But it's how you react to them and how you respond to them, which is important.
100%. I've got a huge amount of respect for everything you've done. And this interview hits home a little bit because my mum's just recently beat breast cancer. So it's great to see someone like yourself who's been through it all, and you're out the other end smashing life.
Well done to your mum as well.
Thank you, mate. I wanted to talk about Cage Warriors as well. How did fighting on Cage Warriors come about?
Well, while I was actually ill, I'm not sure if you've heard this story. I was on my own in the hospital one night, going through chemotherapy. I used to have 20 hours on, 4 hours off for 5 days, 2 weeks off, and I'd be back in. And during one of those stints, Dean texted me, offering me a fight in Cardiff on Cage Warriors. at the time, and I explained the situation to him and that what was happening, and he just said to me, "There'll be a pair of yellow gloves waiting for you at the end of it." So that was again something that gave me hope going through the cancer journey, and something I wanted to tick off. Like when I got the offer from Cage Warriors, I had a couple of offers from a couple of other organisations, but just because of what happened during the cancer journey and me always having that goal was one of the main reasons that I wanted to sign for Cage Warriors. And when they asked Carl Prince if they wanted me in that 4-man tournament, it was a no-brainer for me.
I wanted to talk about that. Obviously, the fight with Sam did not go your way, but how did you feel about making your debut on Cage Warriors?
Again, the fight didn't go my way. I was pretty disappointed as well with my performance. It wasn't like an Aaron Aby fight, that first one, where it's all action, fast pace. You know, I like to go out on my shield, and I felt like that fight I was just controlled too much by Sam. Didn't really was able to get out of first gear. I went away and made some changes. I don't think like I should have been giving up the weight I was giving up. And one of my main focuses since that fight is why I didn't fight on the last Cage Warriors card, because I've been putting on some weight. I think when you're competing against some of the best in the world, you can't be giving up 20, 25 pound weight advantages. So even though it was like my first fight on Cage Warriors, I'm not going to say I was happy with it, or it was a great time for me, because I'm not there just to make up the numbers. So we went away back to the drawing board, looked on where we needed work, looking on how we can improve, and then come back the next time.
How did the recent fight with Samir Faiddine come about? Because obviously, as we know, Samir, former world champion, and you went out there, got the win. How did that one come about?
Just got offered it. They were looking to match me. I got offered another fight before Faiddine, and I said yeah, and then that didn't come through. And they said, "This one's available. Do you want it?" And for me, it was a perfect fight to come back to, because obviously he'd beaten Sam Creasy in the past. He was a former world champion, so it put me right back in the mix if I can get a win. Because sometimes, like obviously, you lose to Sam, and he goes on and wins the belt. It can put you down the pecking order at the back of the line again. So you might need 3-4 wins before you're getting back in that title contention. But I think if you can get a win over a former world champion, someone who's beaten someone you just lost to, it puts you straight back in the mix. So it was a perfect fight to come back to after the loss.
You mentioned Carl Prince earlier. As we know, Carl's the head coach over at Manchester Top Team. What's your relationship like with the guys over there?
I have a great relationship with him. I always train with Carl back when he was doing pad work in gyms. He was always my MMA striking coach. I used to like train at the MMA academy with Jason and go and work with Carl for pad work, and like spend 2-3 times a week with him. He was in my corner for all my ACB fights before that, so it just rekindled that relationship since he opened the gym at Manchester Top Team, and started going there a few times a week, working with him, and like we have a good understanding together, and we have pretty much just very similar philosophies, and like he's a good coach, breaks stuff down well for me, and we have a good relationship. So just rekindling that and spending a bit more time there for this fight, I think helped.
100%. I've not got too many more because I'm sure you're going to be very busy, but what's next?
Again, I don't know what's next. You're pretty much waiting to be told what's next, but I want to go as soon as possible. I don't want to be a sit on the shelf fighter. I want to compete as often as possible. I'm going to train through Christmas. The next Cage Warriors till March, but I'll be ready well before then, and ready for every show they got available next year. I'm always in the gym. I'm not one to take time off. I don't want to be I don't need time to get ready. My weight's always good. I'm always fit. So I just want to be competing as often as possible and challenging myself as often as possible. So it's not up to me what's next, but I'm ready for whatever is.
And before I let you go, is there anything you'd like to sign off with or say anything at all?
No, obviously, I've done all my thank you and appreciation posts to my coaches, teammates, and sponsors. I wish Jason Tan happy birthday today because he's 40. But no, like I'm a very fortunate person with the people I've got around me, and they all know how much I appreciate them, and everyone's worked hard to get me where I am, and I love the support I've got, and I'm very grateful for it.
Well, Aaron, it's been a pleasure speaking to you today, mate, and I can't wait to see you in the cage again.
No worries. Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron.